I like to consider myself a game developer, which in a sense is true since I'm currently working on a game with my brother, but I still feel like I'm very lacking in certain areas. Yes, I can draw 2D assets, and with some extra brain power, I can squeeze out a good 3D model or two. But that's about it. The actual mechanics running in the background of a game is like a mystery to me. Or at least it was until I spent a week learning how to code like a pro. AAA game studios better watch out because I'm coming for you. Yeah, maybe it wasn't that revolutionary of an experience, but I did learn some basics of C# thanks to YouTube tutorials. Stick around to see my journey from knowing nothing to making 4 fully playable games. I may not know much about programming, but I wasn't completely in the dark at the start of this. In high school, I took a course in C#, and even though I didn't remember much, I knew how basic variables work, start and update functions, etc. Not to mention that I have a whole college education in game development where we mostly used Unity. I have also dabbled by myself in making a prototype in 2D, and it worked, I guess. It had a day-night cycle and everything. But the code I was using made no sense to me at the time, and frankly I had no idea what I was doing. The knowledge I had wouldn't get me very far in making a full game. So I turned to trusty old YouTube to help me out. Unity is my engine of choice since C# is fairly easy to learn, and luckily Unity has more tutorials than Unreal Engine, GameMaker or Godot. I found this tutorial by GameMaker's Toolkit on how to make Flappy Bird, and after watching the whole 40-minute video thinking, hey, this looks pretty easy, I figured I might as well get started right away. To be specific, it's a tutorial for complete Unity beginners, and thankfully I'm a little more experienced than that, so this tutorial was quite easy for me to follow along with, since I was mostly after the code and learning how that affects the game. Honestly, I think this was a really great tutorial to start off with. He did a good job of explaining every step in the process and exactly what the code does. In about an hour I had a working Flappy Bird game, or as I called mine, Flarpy Birth. At the end of the tutorial he gave some challenges on how to continue building on the game, like adding clouds in the background, adding menus, sounds and music, or maybe even expanding on the mechanics themselves. I actually did most of those things. I added clouds using a particle system with some help through other tutorials. I added a sound for when the bird flaps its wings, which I also added animations for. There's a main menu, a game over menu along with a game over sound, and I even tried adding a bit to the mechanics by making the pipes speed up over time, but I really couldn't get it to work properly. Me and my siblings sat for hours trying to figure it out, and in the end I just gave up on it. I have some sort of variable for acceleration, but it doesn't really do anything. If anyone has any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. But with one somewhat success under my belt, I moved on to the next game and the next tutorial. With some more knowledge in my brain, I felt confident I could tackle an old retro game, and I found a tutorial for just that. Sigurus has been my holy grail in this quest because this man has made so many tutorials on old games. I was honestly ecstatic when I first stumbled upon his channel. I started with his tutorial on how to make Snake, and what can I say? In less than 2 hours, I had a fully functioning game of Snake. Or as I like to call it, Snake. I got lazy and didn't add any sounds to this one, but I might get around to it later. For the most part, I stuck very closely to the tutorial, but at one point I noticed a bit of a problem. As you can see here, he changes the fixed time step in the Unity editor to make the movement a little slower, which if you're only making Snake wouldn't be a problem, but I had both Flappy Bird and Snake in the same Unity project, which made both games run much slower. So I had to come up with a solution. For the first time in this journey, I had to use my own brain to solve a coding problem. So yeah, I slowed down the time when Snake starts playing, and when you die it speeds up again. I'd like to polish the game a bit more, but I'm just too lazy for it. Instead, I just moved on to game number 3. Next up was Pong, and this was my first ever attempt at making an AI system. It sounds a lot cooler than it is, but hey, it works as intended. Right from the start of the tutorial, I thought that it'd be cool to add an option if you want to play against a computer or add another player. So I kept that in the back of my mind the whole time, figuring out a plan on how I could make it work. As expected, it wasn't that hard. I made a new scene, swapped out the computer paddle for a second player paddle, copied the player script, and changed the controls a bit. And voila! Multiplayer Pong! Or as I called it, yeah, on second thought I'd rather not say that out loud. Moving on to the last game I made during this short time frame, this one also a tutorial by Sigurds, Astros. I've never played Astros before, so it was a little different from the other ones since I didn't know exactly what I was trying to achieve. And oh my god, I hate this game. It's way too freaking difficult! I know most old games are difficult, but the controls here are just awful. Anyway, tutorial 10 out of 10, would recommend. I don't remember any specific issues I had with this one, except that I copy-pasted a part of the code and forgot to change it, so my spaceship couldn't turn left. It took me a bit too long to figure that one out, but that's the story of how Asteroids was born. To finish up the whole project, I added some menus to tie everything together. I have a snazzy main menu that shows all the different games, and I even added a parallax effect using the Feel asset. And the best part? It actually works. Yeah, that's right, I managed to write a main menu script all on my own. After already having watched Bracky's main menu tutorial countless times. Every individual game has its own menu too. This way I can show the controls and a little info about the original game. This is also where you choose single or multiplayer for Pong. All in all, I'm really proud that I managed to make this much in such a short time frame. Yes, it was thanks to tutorials, and yes, it's games that already exist, but we all gotta start somewhere, right? I've added my own touches, mostly in the menus because that's the easy stuff. But when I add even just a little bit to what is already there, I feel very accomplished. I'm still a beginner after all. If you'd like to follow these tutorials yourself, the links will be in the description. If you watched this far, chances are you've enjoyed it, and you might enjoy checking out our other videos of our game Mistwinter that we're currently working on. Maybe I'll make a part 2 about my coding endeavors when it's time for me to get back into programming. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out when that happens. I'm Wogglawooh, and thank you so much for watching this video. Bye!